Hare Krishna. So we'll begin. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So welcome back to our Saturday and Sunday discussion on exploring Raganuga Bhakti. Yesterday we began this discussion and I would like to recap before we go into today's discussion. So yesterday we began with the overview of the main themes what we will be discussing in our this topic exploring Raganuga Bhakti. And yesterday we discussed Mahaprabhu's gift to the best of the Kali Yugas. So we discussed this famous verse, Anarpitam Charim Charat Karunavatirna Kalo, Samarpayamitum Unnata Ujjvala Rasam Swabhaktim Shriyam, Hari Purata Sundara Duti Kandamba Sandipita, Sadha Hridaya Kandara Spurata Va Sachi Nandana. So this verse, what this actual verse's meaning is that, he has come to give us, he is the ocean of mercy, Karuna Avatirna Kalo. And he has come us to give us that Unnata Ujjvala Ras, that Prema Bhakti, which is practiced in Vrindavan and which is the highest, going from Dasya to Sakya to Vatsalya and Madhurya. And Prabhupada's purport or explanation is very brilliant, how he starts, with analysis between matter and spirit in the Bhagavad Gita, second chapter. And he goes on to discuss how the soul ultimately surrenders to Krishna in 18.66. So Prabhupada brilliantly explains that, and then, accepting, God is great, but entering into a relationship, that is still higher. And we can enter into a relationship with God as a friend, as a lover, as a mother and father, and as a friend, the intimacy what even Arjuna cannot have, because Arjuna is having knowledge about Krishna's supremacy. Whereas the Brajbasis, who are intimate friends of Krishna, they don't accept Krishna as God. So this is the kind of friendship we can have. And then the parents who feel that, Krishna is to be maintained by us. God is the maintainer of all living beings, but Krishna accepts, his parents who are devotees, and he comes under their control and is maintained by them. And they feel also that he is helpless if we don't maintain him, if we don't feed him. And then the highest is the Madhuri Ras, the lover and the beloved. So that is the Unnata Ujjvala Ras, which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come, and he's come in this golden form. I offer my obeisances, and let me always in my heart, let he appear, let me always he be situated in the innermost chambers of my heart. That is the prayer, which is a beautiful invocation prayer for this Raganuga Bhakti, what we discussed yesterday. Then we discussed about the internal and the external reasons of Lord Chaitanya's advent. And this verse we discussed, Prema Rasa Niryas Karite Aswadana Raga Marga Bhakti Loka Karite Pracharana Rasika Shekara Krishna Parama Karuna Ei Dui Hetu Hoite Ichara Udgama. Ei Dui Hetu. For these two reasons, to relish Aswadan, the highest devotional mellow, that is Madhuri Ras, the topmost devotee Srimati Radharani, how she is relishing, what attraction she is relishing in Krishna, what kind of taste and what kind of happiness she is relishing. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the role of Srimati Radharani, and he had come to propagate this kind of devotion which is practiced in Vrindavan, which is called as the Raga Mag, spontaneous devotion service. And in this context, we saw some of the beautiful verses, how is cotton Aishwarya Gyan, it is Mishrit Gyan. And this kind of loving devotional service, although it is Prema Bhakti, but there is knowledge that Krishna is God or Narayan is Bhagavan. Krishna doesn't come under the control. Nahi mora preet. And, I am Ishwar, he is servant. This kind of, love, Krishna doesn't become controlled by this kind of love. And then he explains, the beautiful verses, Mora Putra, Mora Saka, this kind of devotion which is practiced in Braj. By this kind of bhakti, I become controlled. So yesterday we saw this, in Vatsalya, how it is, and Shuddha Sakyaras, and then in the conjugal love. And then we discussed, Krishna Bhakti, Rasa Bhavita, Mati, Kriyatam Yado, Yadi Kutopi Labhyate, Tatra Laulyam Api Moolanam Ekalam, Janma Koti Sukriter Na Labhyate. So this kind of spontaneous devotion, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati, this kind of devotion cannot be had by any pious activities for hundreds and thousands of lives. There's only one prize. What is that? Laulyam. So what is this greed? We will have an elaborate discussion when we go into Raganuga Bhakti definition and then explanation. What is this? This is not any material greed. This is a spiritual greed. And when it awakens, and we have to check whether we have that kind of greed. So we'll have a careful study of this, what this real greed is in the coming verses. So these are the three verses we discussed. So today we will begin with, the next part of the theme of discussion, that is division and overview of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu and revising previous concepts of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, that is Uttama Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, and Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. So this is part 2, which we will be discussing today. So let us go to the overview of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. So this we have discussed while discussing especially NOD series on the Sadhana Bhakti, but it is wise that those who are first time attending even this series of Raganuga Bhakti, it is wise to have a overview of this scripture which we are studying, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, as it is Bhakti, devotional service, Rasa Amrita. It is filled with nectar of devotion, and it is a Sindhu, it is an ocean. So just like an ocean, you can have four principal directions. There is north, south, east, west. So similarly, the ocean of this, scripture, it's called as the Granth Vibhag. This ocean, Rup Goswami has, compared to this metaphor of an ocean. And just like an ocean has four sides, his book is divided into four divisions. So the eastern, first he begins with the eastern side, then he goes clockwise, southern, western, and northern. So in the eastern side, he discusses the overview of devotion, devotion service in practice, devotion service in ecstasy, devotion service in love of Godhead. So this is called as Samanya Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, and Prema Bhakti. So this is the four. These are the four chapters which in the eastern side are, and each of these chapters are named as laharis. Laharis means waves. So just like the ocean have waves, so in the eastern side there are four waves. So here I have mentioned eastern division, four waves. The first wave is called as Samanya Bhakti, overview of Bhakti, where he gives the definition of pure devotion, what are the characteristics of pure devotion, and how these characteristics manifest, and who is qualified to practice bhakti. All these, he discusses. In the second wave, he discusses sadhana bhakti. So we are all sadhakas who have entered the bhakti school, and he defines what is sadhana bhakti, and then he goes to Vaidhi and Raganuga sadhana. Remember, Raganuga sadhana is part of sadhana bhakti, which we are going to quite elaborately discuss in our coming sessions. The third wave is Bhava Bhakti, and the fourth wave is Prema Bhakti. Now, the southern side, if you see the overview of Rasa, this is quite a technical subject, and we will not go into it, but suffice to tell that there are 5 waves here. And by studying this southern side, we come to the western side where there are these 5 principal relationships which we are connected to Krishna: Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. So the 5 primary rasas are discussed. And in the northern side, the 7 secondary rasas or the Gaun rasas are discussed. There is laughter, Hasyaras, compassion, Karuna, anger, Raudras, fear, Bhayanak ras, Bhayaras, Bhayanak or Bhayanak ras, yeah. And there is ghastliness, Vibhatsya, like that. All these kinds of emotions, these are all on the spiritual platform. So these secondary rasas, which embellish the primary rasas, is quite elaborately discussed in the northern. And mixture of mellows means mixture of rasas. Just like the parental rasa goes well along with Karuna ras, compassion. And the friends of Krishna, they prank or they make jokes with Krishna. So there is Hasiras there. So these some are mixtures are allowed. So they are called as compatible rasas, and some are incompatible. So that is distorted mellows, or what is called as rasabhas in Sanskrit language. So all this is discussed in the northern division. And in the Bhakti Shastri course, which we study, those who are serious of studying the philosophy very systematically, when they take up the Bhakti Shastri course, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu is also one of the scriptures we study. We study the Bhagavad Gita, Ish Upanishads, Nectar of Devotion, and Nectar of Instruction. So we study only the Eastern Division, in fact. So this Eastern Division is what we study. Now let us go actually a little detail into what is first, second, third, and fourth wave. Because we are studying Raganuga Bhakti, but we should have an overview of what each wave is. So the Eastern Division, the first wave, basically begins with Vastu Nirdesh, means the real object of the book is Krishna, but he is called as Akhila Rasamrita Murti. He is the personified form of all rasas. The preface to the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is not part of what Rupa Goswami has given, but Prabhupada in his NOD summary study has given a preface to his readers to introduce the book of Rupa Goswami. So we also study the preface quite in detail. But the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu begins from this first verse, Akila Rasamrita Murti, and then there are the Mangalacharan verses, And after that, Rupa Goswami defines pure devotional service. So the pure devotional service definition is there. The 6 characteristics of pure devotional service and what are the qualifications for bhakti. So like that, in the first, eastern section, that is 1, the first wave, again 1.1, from verse 1 to 46 comprises the first wave. So this is a series in itself, and sometime back we had this discussion in 12 classes. Now the second division, here I made it as A because again this is sadhana bhakti. So the second division is sadhana bhakti. So here there is a definition of sadhana bhakti, there is a definition of Vaidhi bhakti, and what are the results we obtain from Vaidhi bhakti. Who is qualified for Vaidhi bhakti? And there are these Uttamadhikari, Madhyama, Kanishta, and then there are mixed devotees who also get qualified to practice bhakti. And how while practicing bhakti we should reject the desire of bhukti, that is enjoyment, and mukti, liberation. And who is the highest devotee? He is the worshipper of Govinda. And difference between Govinda and Vishnu is also brought out. And then rejection of Varna and Ashram as a qualification of bhakti, Rupa Goswami discusses. Bhakti can be obtained only by the mercy of pure devotees who have pure faith. So that he establishes. And then sadhana bhakti has its limbs, or what is called as angas. So he defines the angas of bhakti. And then there are 64 limbs in sadhana bhakti. So then he goes on to list the 64 limbs of sadhana bhakti along with all other, things to be avoided which are given in other Puranas, in the Vara Puran, in the Padma Puran and all that. And then later on, Rupa Goswami gives scriptural proof for each of the angas of sadhana bhakti. And at last, the last theme is how some of the things are rejected as angas of bhakti. Like Varnashram is rejected as an anga of bhakti. Gyan and Vairagya are rejected as angas of bhakti. So this is what is there in the Eastern Division, second wave. Now, Eastern Division, second wave B. So we are studying the second wave part 2. And what is our study? This is what we will be studying in our these seminars which are going to go on. First is we will be discussing or defining. Rupa Goswami is going to give a definition of what is Raganuga Bhakti. And in the definition it is mentioned that Raganuga Bhaktas follow the Ragatmika Bhaktas. So then Rupa Goswami goes on to define what is Ragatmika Bhakti. So he gives the definition of Ragatmika Bhakti. Now within Ragatmika Bhakti, there are 2 types of Ragatmika Bhakti. One is called as the Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti. The second is called as the Sambandha Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti. So this he explains, and then he gives also scriptural proof for these kind of Ragatmika Bhakti. And then he comes back to the discussion of, he has already defined Raganuga Bhakti. What are the qualifications for Raganuga Bhakti? So for any, practice, any school, even if you want to go into an engineering or a medical school, you have to get qualified. You have to pass an entrance. So there is also qualification for Raganuga Bhakti. So he discusses the qualification of Raganuga Bhakti. And then after that, what are the angas of Raganuga Bhakti? Just like in Sadhana Bhakti, after defining, especially Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, then he defines the anga of Sadhana Bhakti and what are the angas of Sadhana Bhakti and what are the angas which are rejected. Similarly here, he defines the angas of Raganuga Bhakti. But here, although the angas of Raganuga Bhakti are same as Vaidhi Bhakti, which are favorable, there is, something more deeper, and that, he divides into 2. Externally, he follows all the rules given by the Acharyas. Internally, he follows, the Ragatmika Bhaktas. They are called as the Nidhi Siddhas. and he goes into more meditation and contemplation. So that is one theme we'll be studying, the angas of Raganuga Bhakti. Now he comes to the types of Raganuga Bhakti. Now remember, this Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti it is. You know, there are two types of Ragatmika Bhakti. There is Kama Rupa and Sambandha Rupa. These are all eternal associates of the Lord from the spiritual world who practice Ragatmika Bhakti. They are perfected beings. But Raganuga is different, and we will come to the definition very soon. So there are two types of Raganuga Bhakti. One is called as Kamanuga and one is called as Sambandhanuga. And within Kamanuga, there is two, Sambhoga Ichha Mai and Tad Tad Bhavichhatmika. So this is the whole syllabus, which is in 38 verses of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which we will be studying during our seminars. Now, in Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion book, I would like to point, all these things, So introduction and preface is there. I told you preface is not part of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami's work, but Prabhupada has given it. So the introduction and the first chapter is practically the first wave, Samanya Bhakti. And from chapter 2 till chapter 16, you can see this, part of the graph. The entire thing is Eastern section. That is from preface to chapter 19 is Eastern section. And the first wave, as I told you, is introduction and chapter 1. The chapters 2 to chapters 16 is second wave, that is Sadhana Bhakti. The first wave is Samanya Bhakti. Now within Sadhana Bhakti, there is two, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, discussion begins from chapter 2, goes on till chapter 14. And Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is described in Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion in chapters 15 and 16. So chapters 15 and 16 is what from Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion we will be referring. And the third wave is Bhava Bhakti, which is chapters 17 and 18. Ecstatic love, character of one in ecstatic love. And chapter 19 is devotional service in pure love of order. That is the fourth wave, that is Prema Bhakti. So this is how we can see the classification done, division done in Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion book. When you refer, you can have an understanding so that you can better study the book. So this is regarding the divisions. So any questions regarding what we discussed till now? There is one question by Ashray Yoga Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
See, you are on the mobile and there is always disturbance, you'll have to type the question and send. There is a lot of disturbance at your end.
Okay, Prabhuji, I'll type and send.
Yeah. Anyone else has any questions regarding what we discussed about the overview of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Eastern Division, especially the four waves? Okay, so then now we will go to the next theme, that is revising the old concepts. Now, before we begin with going actually into Raganuga Bhakti, let us revise the old concepts and have a clear understanding before we go into Raganuga Bhakti. The first thing is, as in the first wave, Rupa Goswami is defining what is pure devotion, what is Uttama Bhakti. So let us first see what is Uttama Bhakti. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadyanavritam anukulena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttama. The highest bhaktir uttama, topmost, uttam. What is that? is defined as continuous service or emotions. Anushilanam. Anu means continuous. Shilanam means practical activity or emotions directed towards Krishna, his expansion forms, or others related to him. Krishna. The word Krishna includes Krishna, his expansions, like the spiritual master also, and others related to him, like the cow or Tulsi, they are Tadiya. So all are included in Krishna. So service towards Krishna or his expansions, like the spiritual master or the cow or Tulsi. How this service is done? With a pleasing attitude towards Krishna, anukulena. It should done with a favorable attitude, with the intention to please Krishna. It should be devoid of all desires other than the desire to please the Lord. Anya abhilashita shunyam. So what is anya abhilashita shunyam means? Having no other desire than the desire to please the Lord. When we do any devotional activity, be it chanting, be it deity service, be it cooking for the Lord, although we are conditioned souls and we have unlimited desires in our heart, you know, and slowly by practicing sadhana bhakti, the purification will happen. So all these desires, which are unwanted desires, which take us away from Krishna, we see them as anarthas, unwanted things. And we want to pursue that one desire, one pure goal, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, Ekehi Kurunandana, as in the Bhagavad Gita it is said, that is my activity, what I'm doing is to please Krishna. That is my desire. And I am doing this activity, with a favorable attitude, anukulena. So this is anya abhilashita shunyam. And the second aspect is jnana karmadya anavritam. And unobstructed by impersonal gyan, the materialistic rituals of karma and other favorable acts. Jnana karmadya anavritam. So what is this activity when we are doing without any desires? We should not, cultivate knowledge in order to merge in the impersonal Brahman. So that kind of cultivation of Gyan is, that covers our bhakti, avrit, avrit means to cover. So the Gyan path where there is, knowledge of impersonal Brahman, this covers our bhakti. So while practicing bhakti, it should be Jnana Anavritam and also Karmadi Anavritam. So what is Karmadi Anavritam? Adi refers to, all other things like Ashtang Yoga, Gyan Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, mystic perfections. So all Adi refers. So while we do any actions, we should not do any actions with the desire to get the fruits. Then, it becomes Karma Avrita. So that's why it is said Karma Anavritam. Or we should not, one who is in the Varnashram, if he thinks that if I don't do my Varnashram duties, if I'm doing bhakti, if I don't do my Varnashram duties, then it is a sin. So better let me do my Varnashram duties, otherwise I'll incur sin. So this kind of understanding, if it has and it does actions, then it becomes Karma Avrita. So this, continuous service, Krishnanu Shilanam, should be done, which is free from all desires except the sole desire to please Krishna, and it should not be covered by karma and not obstructed or covered by karma and gyan. So this is the definition of Uttama Bhakti, and especially, Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur have given a very elaborate explanation on what this whole verse is. In fact, for every word, they have given a very detailed explanation. And this is a class in itself. But suffice here to understand what is the pure definition of Uttama Bhakti. This is the very famous verse, which we regularly refer in our Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu series or whenever we quote about pure devotion. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadyanavritam anukulena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. So this is definition of pure devotion. Then in the second wave, there is the definition of sadhana bhakti. Now, in the definition of pure devotion, Rup Goswami mentions that this is, this is the Paribhashya Sutra. Paribhashya means, Pari means all around. Bhashya means to light up. Just like, in a temple which is very huge, there are many, many lamps situated in all the places in the temple. And when all the lamps are on, then the whole temple gets lit. But maybe sometimes you can have a central huge chandelier, you can say, by owning that chandelier, the entire temple room is lit. So similarly, whatever definitions, future definitions which Rup Goswami is going to mention in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, they will be following this Paribhashya Sutra of Anyabhilashita Shunyam verse. So this is called as the Paribhashya Sutra, and every scripture has a Paribhashya Sutra. And other definitions, like Rupa Goswami is going to now define sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, Raganuga sadhana bhakti, Bhava bhakti, Prema bhakti, all fall within the ambit of Anyabhilashita Shunyam definition. So now let us see what is sadhana bhakti. So this is a very famous verse which comes in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya bhava sa sadhana vidha nitya siddhasya bhavasya prakatyam vriddhi sadhyata. Action of the senses, kriti sadhya, means in sadhana bhakti we engage our senses in Krishna service, which produces the stage of bhava. Sadhya bhava bhavet. Now here, the purpose of sadhana bhakti is to what? Produce bhava bhakti. So here it fits into Anyabhilashita Shunyam, because there is no other desire except the desire to please the Lord. So bhakti produces bhakti. Sadhana bhakti will, by practicing, will mature into bhava bhakti. So this fits in Anyabhilashitam Shunyam verse of the Paribhashya Sutra, which we discussed, 1:11. So kriti sadhyat, sadhana bhakti, which produces bhava bhakti, is called sadhana bhakti. Sa sadhana vidha. Now he explains what is this bhava bhakti. This attained state of bhava bhakti, sadhyata. Sadhyata means, sadhya means the ultimate goal, is an eternal sthai bhav, which is not created. Nitya siddhasya bhavasya, but simply manifest within the soul by the spiritual energy of the Lord. Riddhi prakatyam. So what is this nitya siddha bhavasya? So Srila Prabhupada used to give a very simple example to explain and understand this. So he used to give an example of the child who, as he grows, he tries to walk. So the walking ability is there within the child. It is not something artificial. Otherwise, he'll never walk. But in order to manifest that walking ability, the child initially needs the help of the parents who try to lift him, hold their hands, or sometimes there are some instruments, there are some play toys, where he hooks on himself and tries to move. And we see children, when they start learning to walk, they walk few steps, they fall down, sometimes they crawl, sometimes they try to walk. So slowly, with a little bit of practice, the innate walking ability which is there in the child will manifest. Similarly, by engaging our senses in sadhana bhakti, the innate ability of the soul to love Krishna, bhava is pure love, in fact, in one sense. Bhava is, bhava bhakti is spontaneous love, in fact. So this innate ability is eternally there. And that is why it is called as eternal sthahi bhav. Sthahi bhav means the steady emotion. Like the mother and the child relationship. The mother, sthahi bhav, with respect to the child in the relationship, is that of mother and child. It's vatsalya bhav. And for the mother who is having also as a role of a wife with the husband is that of a different emotion. It is that of a more of a madhurya ras, it's conjugal love. So this Tahi Bhav, every devotee is eternally related to the Lord in any of these, different uh, bhavas. There is Sakya, Dasya, Vatsalya, and Prem. So this is innate there, but it manifests by practicing sadhana bhakti. That is the meaning of Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Riddhi Prakatyam. It manifests. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also there is famous verse, uh, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem, Kabu Sadhyanai, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitta, Karaya Uday. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem. Krishna Prem is eternally, it is there, Nitya Siddha, as the word here it is used, Nitya Siddha Se Bhavase. It is eternally residing. The propensity to love is there in the jiva, but that love now is misdirected to the objects and to the people of this world. But the real eternal innate love is of the soul in relationship with the Supreme Soul. So Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya, you know, sorry, the Chaitanya Charitamrita verse says what? Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem, Kabu Sadhyanai, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitta, Koraya Uday. So when we start practicing sadhana bhakti by hearing, Krishna Katha, and it's like watering the seed. And with the watering, the plant will grow and the fruit will be Krishna Prem. So similarly, Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Prakattam Riddhi Sadhyatha. This is the definition Rupa Goswami defines of sadhana bhakti, which falls within the ambit of the Paribhasha Sutra, that is Anya Bilashita Shunyam. Later on, Rupa Goswami says, after defining sadhana bhakti, Vaidi Raganuga Cheti Sadvida Sadhana Bidha. There are two types of sadhana bhakti, Sadvida Sadhana Bidha, Vaidi and Raganuga. Vaidi Raganuga Cheti. So here is the division. Uttama Bhakti, in fact, is sadhana and sadhya. Sadhana is the practicing stage, sadhya is the perfected stage. And within sadhana, there are two divisions, Vaidi Bhakti, Vaidi Sadhana Bhakti it is called sometimes, and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. And within sadhya, there is Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti. Bhava Bhakti is discussed in the third wave, Prema Bhakti is discussed in the fourth wave of the Eastern division. So this Uttama Bhakti has these divisions, sadhana and sadhya. Within sadhana, there is Vaidi and Raganuga. Within sadhya, there is Bhava and Prema. So this sadhana bhakti is divided into two. And now let us go to the definition of Vaidi sadhana bhakti. Definition of Vaidi sadhana bhakti. Tatra Vaidi. Yatra ragavaptvat pravrittirupajayate Shashanevaiva shastrasya savidhi bhaktiruchyate. Where the actions of bhakti arise, yatra pravrittir upajayate. Upajayate means, they arise, actions, not from the attainment of raga anavaptatva, but by the teachings of scripture. Shastrasya shashaneva, it is called Vaidi Bhakti. Sa Vaidi Bhaktir Uchyate. So Vaidi Bhakti is what basically, when one takes up to sadhana bhakti, one becomes qualified to take up to sadhana bhakti, he starts following the rules and regulations of practicing Vaidi sadhana bhakti. He is governed by the rules, and he has not yet developed that spontaneity. What that spontaneity is, we will look into it when we come to the definition of Raganuga Bhakti. So it is more governed by the rules and regulations set up in Vaidi Sadhana Bhakti. So, morning, getting up early in the morning, chanting your rounds, because still, that natural propensity, that spontaneity of the heart, where the pure soul is attracted to Krishna has not yet awakened. And by practice of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, slowly the heart gets purified. And the natural inclination of soul, when the chitta is purified, slowly this spontaneity will awaken. Till then, that bhakti which is practiced according to the teachings of the you're governed. Shashan means to be governed. How? By the rules of the Shastra, by the teachings of the Shastra. That is defined as Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. That is Vaidhi Bhakti. Chaitanya Charitamrita also gives very similar definition. Ragahina jana bhaje shastre ragyaya Vaidhi Bhakti boli tare sarva shastra gaya. Those who have not attained the platform of spontaneous attachment even devotional service. Ragahina jana. Render devotional service under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master according to the regulative principles mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Bhaje Shastrera Agyaya. Now here Prabhupada, in his translation itself, he is giving quite elaborate explanation also. He's not just literally translating the verse, but he's giving a very elaborate explanation and which he more expands in his purports. So what is it? Spiritual master. My spiritual master, I have taken a vow while taking initiation that I will follow the four regulative principles, chant at least 16 rounds, and follow all the regulative principles of sadhana bhakti. And you are guided by the spiritual master, your spiritual mentors. So we are guided by the spiritual master, and the spiritual master's guidance is coming from the revealed scriptures. Bhaje Shastra Ragyai. According to revealed scriptures, Tare Sarva Shastra Gai, this kind of devotional service is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti Boli. Boli means this is Bengali. Boli means it is called like that. So Chaitanya Charitamrita also gives a very clear and similar definition as Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu definition of Rupa Goswami. This is Sanskrit composition. This is a Bengali composition. This is spoken in Bengali. So this is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now coming to part 2, that is Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So now we will start with the definition of Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Now Ashray Yoga Prabhu had some question, but he has still not typed it. So we are not able to take it up. But till now what we discussed, if anyone has any questions. Any questions, any clarifications about revisiting the previous old concepts, definition of Uttama Bhakti, definition of Sadhana Bhakti, and definition of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. We need this previous background because after this only Raganuga Bhakti starts. So we need to have a little bit understanding of what these definitions are. Okay then, so fine. Then we will go to now Raganuga Bhakti. Okay. Now Raganuga Bhakti begins in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. There is no separate, it is, I told you, it is part of second wave only. After discussing the angas of sadhana bhakti, scriptural proof, and what are not angas, everything, then lastly, this is continuation in the second wave. Rupa Goswami starts discussing Raganuga Bhakti, Atha Raganuga. So 1 to 270. This is how he defines Raganuga Bhakti. Let us recite this verse. Virajantim abhivektam Rajavasi janadishu Ragatmikam anusruta Yasa raganochate. Raganuga Bhakti is defined as Sa Raganuga Uchate. Uchate means it is called, or it is said, or it is defined. What is it, Raganuga? That bhakti which follows after Ragatmika Bhakti. Ragatmikam Anusruta Ya. Found distinctly Virajantim Abhivektam. Tam. Where? In the inhabitants of Vraj. Vrajvasi Janadishu. So here Rupa Goswami is defining what is Raganuga Bhakti. Simple terms, he says Raganuga Bhakti is that which follows the Ragatmika Bhakti. And this Ragatmika Bhakti is found where? It is found in the inhabitants of Vrajvasis. Vrajvasi Janadishu. Now, everyone will wonder, okay, Raganuga means those who follow the Ragatmika Bhaktas, who are the eternal associates, Vrajvasis. Now, who are these Ragatmika Bhaktas will be the question. And Rupa Goswami is definitely going to go and explain who are the Ragatmika Bhaktas. Now, first thing we need to understand about Raganuga Bhakti actually in one sense is not spontaneous devotional service. And we will come to it because Raganuga Bhakti is part of Sadhana Bhakti. Only it is more elevated compared to Vaidhi Bhakti. Spontaneous devotion, even in sadhya stage, that is bhava and prema, they are called more spontaneous. Bhava is pure rati or attraction, spontaneity, and then there is prema, which is fully manifested like a blossomed flower. Bhava is compared to like a ankur, which is the flower which is just in the budding stage. The flower when it comes in the form of bud is compared to bhava, and next day the flower blossoms fully. We have experiences, so that is like prema. So in one sense, spontaneous devotion is bhava bhakti and uh, prema bhakti. Raganuga bhakti is not spontaneous devotion directly to Krishna. There is spontaneity in following whom? The Ragatmika Bhaktas. There is a natural spontaneity to follow the Ragatmika Bhaktas. Ragatmikam Anusrutyaya. And these Ragatmika Bhaktas are Virajantim. Virajantim means they are resplendent or shining. They are fully, it is manifested in the inhabitants of Vraj. So here, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that is called Raganuga Bhakti, which follows after the Ragatmika Bhakti, which manifest Virajantim distinctively Abhivaktam in the inhabitants of Vraj. So let us now little bit try to understand what exactly is Raganuga Bhakti and Ragatmika Bhakti. I will come to the terms defining Raganuga and Ragatmika, but let us try to understand. Now this is also Chaitanya Charitamrita explanation. Ragatmika Bhakti Mukhya Vrajavasi Jane Tara Anugata Bhaktira Raganuga Name. The original inhabitants of Vrindavan are attached to Krishna spontaneously in devotional service. So the Vrajvasi Jan, the Vrajvasis, the eternal associates of the Lord in the spiritual world, like Nand Maharaj, Yashoda, the Gopis, the Sakas, they are all Ragatmika Bhaktas. They are eternally perfected devotees who have spontaneous attraction towards Krishna. And Tara Anugata, following in their footsteps, what bhakti is practiced is defined as Raganuga Bhakti. Nothing can compare to this such spontaneous devotional service, which is called Ragatmika Bhakti. When a devotee follows in the footsteps of the devotees of Vrindavan, his devotional service is called Raganuga Bhakti. So this is also very similar to, again, the definition given by Rupa Goswami. Now let us try to understand now. Sadhana Bhakti, as I mentioned, has two divisions, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Now, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, we are practicing devotion to Lord Krishna, but we are governed by the Vaidhi Bhakti rules. We are governed Shastrera Shashan, as it is mentioned. But as one graduates from Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti with the purification of the heart, and he directly or he develops a kind of mood in which he would like to practice bhakti following the eternal associates of Krishna. who are in the spiritual world, who are called as Ragatmika Bhaktas. That is Raganuga Bhakti. So Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, instead of being governed by the Vaidhi Bhakti rules, he starts following the Ragatmika Bhaktis and practices devotion towards Krishna. So this is the difference between Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Now let us try to understand this with some practical example. You know, I don't know now, I'm out of touch since last 20 years at least. My father used to like tennis a lot, and sometimes he used to tell me to come and sit and watch tennis, especially the Wimbledon tennis. And I remember that time, some of the most Wimbledon champions were like Pete Sampras in the male category and Steffi Graf in the female category. I don't know about them now. So let us now take this example of tennis, and two candidates who would like to learn tennis, they go to a tennis academy and they start learning tennis from a teacher. And the teacher, from the books explains how to hold the tennis bat, how to actually, hit the ball, front end, back end, all the rules, what is the movement of the arm. So many rules are governed for playing the tennis. So both the candidates, who have gone to this tennis academy, who have a goal, ultimately one day I want to, go to Wimbledon. With this goal, our goal is to attain Krishna Prem. So similarly, these candidates who want to learn tennis have gone to this tennis academy with the goal to enter one day Wimbledon. They start practicing tennis with the instructions of the teacher, following the book rules of tennis, playing tennis. Now, both are practitioners. Please understand, both are practitioners. Like they are, in one sense, both are practicing sadhana bhakti, But with a period of time of practice, one of the practitioners, gets access or gets attracted to the way, Pete Sampras, I'm taking his name. I don't know whether he's there now or no, but he was one of the famous Wimbledon players. Pete Sampras, he has access to his videos and he sees those videos and he starts practicing seeing Pete Sampras. Mind you, he's still practicing, but he's practicing not referring to the book rules of tennis, but directly following Pete Sampras. And Pete Sampras is like a perfected person. He's like a Ragatmika Bhakta. And among the two practitioners, one who is following, seeing the videos of Pete Sampras and practicing, is in the practicing stage, please remember. The other one is also practicing, but he's more, following the book rules. He's still not matured. He's still following the book rules and he needs a teacher guidance now and then for the movement of the hands, front and back end. But he has developed some attraction towards Pete Sampras, and seeing his videos, he has started practicing, and he's now looking into the book. He's directly having the example of Pete Sampras, and he's developed some spontaneity in his practice following Pete Sampras. So similarly, Raganuga Bhakti is what? Where one doesn't follow the rules of Vaidhi Bhakti. It doesn't mean that he neglects it. Please understand here. But he follows the Ragatmika Bhaktas. How they are practicing bhakti, he is inspired by that mood, whether it is Mother Yashoda or Nand Maharaj or the friends of Krishna or the gopis. And in their footsteps, how they are practicing bhakti, he starts following them. That bhakti is called as Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So with this example of the tennis practitioners, two practitioners, one who follows the book rules and one who follows Pete Sampras, seeing his videos, starts, naturally practicing. Both are practitioners, but one is on a little different level. One has developed some spontaneity in playing tennis, seeing Pete Sampras. Similarly, the Raganuga Sadhana Bhakta, follows the Ragatmika Bhaktas, who are the eternal associates of Krishna. They are spontaneous devotees, and their spontaneity is pure and perfect, 100%. And he is attracted by that spontaneity, and he follows in their footsteps. And that following in the footsteps of Ragatmika Bhakti, that bhakti which is practiced, is called as Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. As the definition is saying, Raganuga Bhakti is that bhakti which follows after the Ragatmika Bhakti. And where it is found? Found distinctly in the inhabitants of Vrajvasi Janadishu. Now here, one more point to be noted is the Brajbasis, the eternal associates of the Lords, they are all Ragatmika Bhaktas. Raga Marga Bhakti Karite Pracharana, as yesterday we had discussed. This Rag is what? Spontaneous attractions, pure spontaneous attraction towards Krishna. So this is practiced by the eternal associates of Vraj, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give this kind of bhakti. But before we go to that level, we have to follow in their footsteps. And following in that footsteps, what bhakti is practiced, it is distinctly found in only the Vrajvasis. So in Vaikuntha also, there are all devotees who are all pure Prema Bhaktas. In Ayodhya also, there are Prema Bhaktas. They are all practicing, they are pure devotees. But here, Rupa Goswami, when he defines Ragatmika, he is referring to only the Brajbasis, which is found only in the inhabitants of Raj. So the Rag Bhakti is, not to Vaikuntha Narayan. It is not even to Krishna in Dwarka or in Mathura. It is specifically to Krishna in Vrindavan, Sham Sundar Krishna, which is practiced by the Brajbasis. So Ragatmika specifically is coined a term by Rupa Goswami. The general definition might be, in the dictionary as, any pure devotee who is practicing devotion, eternal associates. Hanuman is also an eternal associate. He has spontaneous love for Lord Ram in Dasya Prem. He has Dasya Prem. That is Dasya Prem. The Bhaktas, Vaishnavas, Vishnu devotees in Vaikuntha have Dasya Prem. That might be Ragatmika, but specifically here, Rupa Goswami is saying Ragatmika means, which is Vrajvasi Janadishu, found in the Vrajvasis, the inhabitants of Raj. So Ragatmika Bhakti Mukhya Vrajvasi Jane. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also making this very, very clear. Following only the Ragatmika Bhaktas of Vrajvasi, that Bhakti which is followed in their footsteps is Raganuga. So this is how we can understand with this example. Now, any questions regarding this definition of Raganuga Bhakti? Okay, now let us take up the questions. So any questions? I'll take up first which are there in the chat, and then we will okay, Ashray Yoga Prabhu has asked difference between Raganuga Bhakti and Ragatmika Bhakti, which I have covered now, I think, and it must be quite clear. Okay, another question is, does Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti transform to Raganuga Bhakti? We will look into it in the coming sessions. So hold on, be patient. Let's go step by step. How Vaidhi Bhakti, transforms into Raganuga Bhakti is an elaborate discussion, and practically I think we'll be spending one class on it. So that time it will become more clear. So just be patient, hold on, keep your eagerness intact, and we will look into it. Now, Mulik Joshi has asked one more question. Can we say that while practicing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti for a long time, and when we cross the stage of Anarth Nivritti, then Raganuga Bhakti manifest? Kindly explain. Yes, wonderful question. And maybe Vaidhi Bhakti transforms to Raganuga Bhakti. Yes. So especially in this line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what we are practicing, we all enter into the bhakti school as sadhakas practicing sadhana bhakti, beginning with Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. With this practice of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, following the rules and regulations, do's and don'ts, slowly from Shraddha Sadhu Sangha, we enter into the stage of Bhajan Kriya. And with the practice of Bhajan Kriya, there is Anartha Nivritti which happens. And with Anartha Nivritti happening, practically when most of the anarthas are destroyed, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttama Shloke, Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtiki. When one reaches the stage of Nishta, where Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu, Abhadras, the anarthas are almost destroyed. And what it is, that is also a subject in itself, which we will be discussing when actually one becomes qualified for practicing Raganuga Bhakti. It is the stage of Nishta. Here I'm making it clear. And we will go more elaborated into that in our coming sessions. What is that stage of Nishta? How we can understand whether we have attained Nishta? All that we will come to that. But here it is suffice to say that one attains Nishta, one is very steady in his practice of devotion. And hearing Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, especially from the 10th canto, one is particularly attracted to a particular mood of his own practice, of his how he would like to offer devotion to Krishna. He might have the mood of Vatsalya, as Mother Yashoda and Nand Maharaj have. He might have the mood of a Saka friend. He might be more attracted to the pastimes which Krishna performs in the forest of Vrindavan with his friends. Or he might be attracted to the Madhurya, the gopis. So when that mood, how it actually manifests in the heart, it manifests because of the purity. Hearing these pastimes from Krishna Lila, he also develops a kind of greed. Let me also have this same sentiment as Krishna's devotees, Sakas, or the gopis, or Mother Yashoda has. So when he starts developing this mood, this is not something which is imagined in the mind. It is actually with the purification of the heart, which comes by his own introspection and with the spiritual master's guidance. So when this mood comes, then he's more attracted, to hearing those pastimes and to follow in their footsteps. Nand Maharaj and Yashoda Mata are Ragatmika Bhaktas. And the Sakas are also Ragatmika Bhaktas. The Gopis are also Ragatmika Bhaktas. They're pure devotees. They have Ragatmika Bhakti. So that you start following their footsteps. You are attracted. You are not now governed by Shastra. You are more, governed by the Ragatmika Bhaktas. Following in the, Ragatmika Bhaktas, you start practicing your Bhakti. And that is called as Raganuga Bhakti. So both aspects are covered in this answer. When, after Anartha Nivritti, yes, you're correct about it. And how it happens, a little bit briefly I discussed. But in our coming sessions, we will be having elaborate discussion, on these subjects, what I discussed, when at stage of Nishta, and how it happens, how the transformation of a Vaidhi Sadhaka Bhakta to a Raganuga Sadhaka Bhakta happens. We will be seeing many slides on that. That will become, the subject will become more clear that time. Is it okay, Mulik Joshi, Prabhuji? Okay. So any other questions regarding this definition of Raganuga Bhakti? Okay, fine. So then I will now, go to the next verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Now, Rup Goswami said, Raganuga Bhakti is what? Following the Ragatmika Bhaktas. Now you'll ask, who are these Ragatmika Bhaktas? So now he defines who are these Ragatmika Bhaktas. So this is the next verse. Raganuga Vivekartam Ado Ragatmikochate. In order to define Raganuga Bhakti, Raganuga Vivekartam, first Ragatmika Bhakti should be discussed. Ado Ragatmika Uchate. Let us first discuss Ragatmika. Who are these Ragatmikas? First you have to understand. if Raganuga Bhaktas follow the Ragatmika Bhaktas, first you have to understand who is Ragatmika Bhakta. A tennis practitioner, if he wants to, ultimately become a great tennis player, he has to know more about Pete Sampras, how well he practices, how well he performs in the Wimbledon. He has to know more about him, how he practices, how he has, gone through this practicing stage and how he has perfected and how many times he has won. He would like to know more details. So that is why Rup Goswami is now going to discuss. In order to define Raganuga, let us discuss Ragatmika. First, Ragatmika Bhakti is going to discuss. And practically, many of the verses of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, go in elaborate discussion of Ragatmika Bhakta, which we are going to see now. Now, Ragatmika Bhakta is being defined in this verse of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. इष्टे स्वारसिका रागा परमाविष्टिता भवेत् तन्मही या भवेत् भक्ति सात्र रागात्मिकोदिता. Raga is defined as Raga Bhavet. Bhavet means it is said or it is defined. Raga Bhakti, as I mentioned, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Raga is defined as what? Spontaneous, Swarasika, deep thirst, Parama Avishtata, for the object of love. Ishte. Ishte Swarasika. Ishte means the object of love. Sometimes we also tell, Gulab Jamun or Rasmalai is my favorite sweet. ये मेरे को बहुत इष्ट है. Ishto, it is very dear to me. So Ishta, the object of love is Krishna, and Rag is what? That spontaneous deep thirst, spontaneous deep thirst, Parama Avishta. Bhakti, that is impelled exclusively by that thirst. Tanmahi ya bhavet bhakti is called Ragatmika Bhakti. Sa atra Ragatmika Udita. Atra means in this scripture. In this scripture, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Rup Goswami is making it very clear that I in this scripture has defined Ragatmika as, it is spontaneous devotion where there is deep thirst for the object of love, that is Krishna. Because he has made it clear, Vrajavasi, in the previous verses. So this Ragatmika Bhakti is only found in the Vrajavasis, and that's why he's saying Sa Atra in the scripture, Ragatmika Udita. Now let us see what Jiva Goswami says in the commentary. Ishte refers to the person towards whom one has loving sentiments, that is Krishna. Swarasika means natural or spontaneous. Now, for us, especially sadhakas who are conditioned souls, this spontaneity is, a thing which we cannot, especially not relate to what the Brajbasis or the Ragatmika Bhaktas have. But we can understand in our conditioned state that we have spontaneous attraction towards sense objects. The senses spontaneously flow towards the sense objects. There is a spontaneous attraction. We spontaneously move when we see, there is rasmalai, our tongue starts watering and our heart starts, rejoicing. Wow, today there is rasmalai, and we, our senses just flow towards the sense objects. Spontaneously, the senses flow towards sense objects. So we conditioned souls are, having spontaneous sense attraction. So form spontaneous sense attraction. When we become sadhakas, we practice regulated, devotional service. That is Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And with Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, slowly, when the heart gets purified and the natural, soul's dormant, loving propensity towards Krishna develops, when the heart is purified, then there is spontaneous devotional service. So these are these three levels we can understand. Spontaneous sense gratification, regulated devotional service, then there is spontaneous devotional service. So Swarasiki here refers to the Vrajvasis who have natural spontaneous attraction towards Krishna. We have natural spontaneous attraction towards sense objects. Parama Avishtata, extreme engrossment. Avishtata means to be engrossed. Actually means thirst intrinsic to prema, which is the cause of being engrossed. So because there is, what? There is natural spontaneous attraction, swarasiki. What is the, this is the cause in the heart, and the effect is complete absorption in the object, that is prema, that is absorption. Thus, raga is defined as spontaneous, intense thirst for one's object of love. The cause, the love thirst, is considered non-different from the affect. So because there is deep love in the heart, there is what? Complete absorption in the object of love. So the love in the thirst, love thirst in the heart is the cause, and the effect is what? Parama avishtata. Because of its extremely strong connection as the cause. Because there is the cause. Recently there was a news, somebody in, I think, Taiwan, he was hooked up on the mobile or whatever device, watching YouTube videos non-stop continuously for 3 days without any food, water. So much was the absorption in the YouTube, what he was watching, I don't know. So much was the absorption because there was intense greed in the heart, intense attraction for being absorbed in it. That intense, thing which was the cause in the heart was the external effect of total absorption in that YouTube watching. And the third day, he completely collapsed and he was, admitted in the ICU. Somehow he survived. So it was out in the news. So similarly, that, this is a material example I'm giving. So similarly, the Brajbasis have love thirst in their heart, and because there is this cause, the effect is what? Deep absorption. So this is Parama Avishtita. And here the example of cause and effect equated is given. It is similar to saying life is ghee. Ghee is the cause of life, long life, but is spoken of as its equivalent to show the importance of ghee as the cause. So ghee is actually, the cause of long life. But ghee is so important that without ghee, nothing exists, So both the cause and effect are equated. Similarly, the thirst which is there, which is the cause, because of that, the effect is deep absorption. And, that is how the cause is non-different from the effect, is given with this example. Thus, by mentioning the effect, absorption, paramavishtata, one should refer the cause, thirst for the object of love. So for this Taiwan person, the thirst was the object YouTube. And he was so much intensely absorbed. Even we as practicing sadhakas, 3 days, we cannot think of having any food, water, and be absorbed so much. If they can be so much materially absorbed, we should also try to spiritually get absorbed, in spiritual subjects. This fact should be considered in other verses also. Tanmai, composed of only of that thirst. Tanmai means that which is impelled, what is impelled only by that thirst. So tanmai is the word used. We have come across this word, Krishnamai. Srimati Radharani is called as Krishnamai because she is completely conscious of only Krishna. Yashoda Mai, we say. Yashoda Mai is always thinking about child Krishna, of his pastimes, composed of. We have come across this word Chinmai. Chin means, completely spiritual, fully composed of spiritual consciousness, And we have come in the Bhagavad Gita this word Gunamai. Gunamai means it is composed of the 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tama. Devi Esha Gunamai, Mama Maya Durataya. Mameva Papadyante, Mayam Etam Tanantite. So Tanmai means it is completely composed of what? The Brajvasis, they have intense thirst and they're impelled by this thirst, and that's why there is so much absorption. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Spontaneous swarasiki absorption paramavishtata in one's object of love, ishte, is called rag. So this is what is called as rag, spontaneous absorption in the object of love. The word avishtata, absorption, is the same as the cause, as we saw in Jiva Goswami's explanation also. Thus it infers the love-filled thirst that gives rise to absorption. The love-filled thirst is the cause, and the effect is absorption. That thirst is called rag. This is what is called rag. And the devotees who practice, who are there, the Vrajvasis, they are called as ragatmika bhaktas. Thus, the complete meaning of the sentence is that love-filled thirst or actions inspired by it, such as stringing garlands for Krishna, which generates complete absorption in the object of love, is called ragatmika bhakti. So the ragatmika bhakti is what? Because there is complete so much thirst and love in the heart, and because of that, any actions which are done, just like the gopis, doing garlands for Krishna, there is so much absorption in making the garlands that because why there is so much absorption? Because of the thirst, or there is a deep felt love thirst in the heart. So that is what kind of bhakti? That is ragatmika bhakti. There is no fault in this rag, even though it may not conform to expected rules. So there is no rules. These ragatmika bhaktas, the Brajbasis, they are not governed by rules. They are having spontaneous attraction to Krishna, and they practice at that platform. Understanding the terms raga, raganuga, and ragatmika. This is where we'll end today. We have to understand these three terms very, very clearly. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that excessive attachment for many forms of sense enjoyment, which the materialist naturally feels through contact with the sense objects, is called rag. Just as the eyes become agitated upon seeing something beautiful, all the senses are ever eager to taste pleasure, and thus the heart develops rag for sense objects. So as I was explaining, we have spontaneous sense attraction in this world. This is rag. Rag means deep attachment for sense objects. When Krishna is the exclusive object of this attachment or rag, it is called raga bhakti. So here you have to distinguish between what is rag in material world. Everyone has rag, but rag bhakti means exclusive object of attachment is Krishna. It is called raga bhakti. The Srila Rupa Goswami has defined this raga bhakti as what? Ishte swarasika raga paramavashtita, which we just discussed, that strong, deep, and natural absorption in the cherished object of one's devotion, arising from an unquenchable loving thirst, is called rag. When one's devotion to Sri Krishna is situated in this stage, it is called ragatmika bhakti. This bhakti is especially found in the Vrajvasis, the eternal residents of Vraj. This is not found in this world. Ragatmika bhaktas are not available in this world. Please understand this. They are all eternal associates of Krishna from the spiritual world. Sridhama, Sudhama, Mother Yashoda, Nand Maharaj, the gopis of Vrindavan. They are all Ragatmika bhaktas. That's why Rupa Goswami has made it very clear. Vrajvasi Janadishu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also made clear. Now, in brief, it can be said that Ragatmika Bhakti is love-filled thirst for Krishna, and devotion that follows in its wake is called Raganuga. In other words, when by the mercy of Sri Krishna and his devotees, one cultivates devotion impelled by the covetous to attain the same mood as Krishna's beloved associates, it is called as Raganuga Bhakti. So when, by the mercy of Krishna and the devotees and with the purification of the heart, one feels that I also want to practice bhakti as, the eternal associates like Sridhama or Sudhama. I would also like to have that kind of a mood of relationship with Krishna. I would like to follow in their footsteps, or the gopis of Vrindavan, or Mother Vaishoda and Vatsalya Ras. When one develops that greed and starts following in their footsteps and starts practicing that bhakti, That is called as Raganuga Bhakti, following in the footsteps of Ragatmika Bhaktas. So these are the technical terms which we have to have a very, very clear understanding. So this is about these three terms: Ragatmika, Raganuga, and Rag. Rag is spontaneous sense gratification. So any questions regarding till now what we discussed? You can raise your hands. Any questions? I hope up till now, at least the terminologies, what is Raganuga and Ragatmika, and especially Rag, or what I said is spontaneous sense gratification, is clear. Okay, there is Ashray Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji, I have already typed my question in the chat box. Can you refer please that?
Okay. Difference between Raganuga Bhakti and Ragatmika Bhakti, this is your question? Yes, Prabhuji, is this your question? Difference between Raganuga Bhakti and Ragatmika Bhakti?
This question is clear now. Next question I have typed, which path we should we should follow.
Yeah, I got the question.
I have typed.
Which path is perfect for us, following the rules or following Ragatmika Bhaktas? Okay. See, firstly, we have to understand that all of us, except very rare who have now entered the school of Raganuga Bhakti, all of us are practicing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And, by practice of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, slowly with the purification of heart, that is Anarth Nivritti happening, we enter into the school of, Raganuga Bhakti. And the whole series of seminars is going to answer for us. Firstly, there is Adhikar. Adhikar means qualification. Just like I told you the example, if you want to enter into IIT, you have to have the qualification. If you want to practice Gyan Yoga, then your heart should be pure and you should be in the renounced order of life. That is the qualification required for practicing Gyan Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. Karma Yoga also has Adhikar, that you should not be, you should be detached to the fruits. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kade ma phaleshu kadachan ma karma phala heturbur sangosti akarbari, as Krishna says. So even to practice karma yoga, you need some adhikar. Similarly, there is adhikar to practice Raganuga Bhakti. So what are those adhikars? Whether we have that qualifications, we'll have to look onto that. And we will come to that in the coming sessions. I can see all of you are very, very eager. You are putting forth questions which are in all our future discussions. So kindly be patient. And, one of the devotees, when I had asked, messaged them that, would you like to attend this course? The devotee told that, maybe I don't know, this is such an elevated topic, whether I'm qualified. I said, hearing about Raganuga Bhakti, we understand actually how glorious is Raganuga Bhakti. We get attracted to practice Vaidhi Bhakti more meticulously. That is our goal of having this course, so that we practice Vaidhi Bhakti. This is one thing to be understood. Secondly, I was giving that example of two practitioners of tennis. One has developed some spontaneity where he's attracted to Pete Sampras and he starts practicing seeing Pete Sampras videos. He has developed that spontaneity. The other one, still doesn't have that spontaneity where he's governed. He's governed by the rules of the Shastras. So he's at that level that he cannot come up to the higher level where he has developed that spontaneity. Similarly, it's not that, okay, last 5 years I practiced Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti now. From tomorrow onwards, I'll start practicing Ragana Bhakti. No, it doesn't happen like that. You have to, get the adhikar to practice. You have to have that qualification. And that qualification comes with the practice of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti itself, with the purification of the heart. And at what time you're qualified to enter into the school of Ragana Bhakti, we will be looking into it. So kindly be patient about it. We will be having practically a half an hour discussion on this, who is qualified. In fact, you saw one of the themes was, Adhikar for practicing Ragana Bhakti, qualifications for Ragana Bhakti. We saw that. There is quite high lofty levels of qualifications for Raganuga Bhakti to practice, and it is suffice here to say that we at this stage of sadhana bhakti should be inspired to practice the sadhana bhakti very meticulously, following the rules and regulations of sadhana bhakti. And the more we do that, by understanding the scriptures like Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Upadeshamrit, the more our sadhana will mature and natural awakening will happen, where we develop this kind of taste and mood to follow the Vrajbasis. But of course, there is a transition, and this transition from Vaidhi and sadhana is to be guided by the spiritual master, the scriptures, as well as one's own inclination. So how this happens is also we're going to discuss in our future sessions. Okay. So right now, I've in one sense not answered you and answered you in brief also. So we'll hold on. In the next coming sessions, we will see elaborately on this. Okay. So there is one question by Joshi. Yes, Prabhuji. You have to speak very clearly on your. Your audio is not clear.
What are the symptoms? Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Are
Hare
you
Krishna.
using a mobile or are you on a computer?
I'm on a computer, but I think some network issue is there.
Okay, okay. Now it is very clear. Please tell me. Yes,
Yeah,
Prabhuji.
actually, my question: who is practicing? Yeah, actually, I was asking, what are the symptoms of a devotee who is practicing Raganuga Bhakti?
Well, you had asked this question and I, clarified it that basically the symptoms of one who is practicing Ragana Bhakti is that his heart is, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. His heart is very pure. He is at stage of Nishta and he has developed a kind of greed, to follow the footsteps of Rajbasis. And that greed is not, ordinary greed, it is spiritual greed. And we will be in our future sessions having elaborate discussion of this greed, what exactly this greed is, whether that greed is, naturally awakened in the heart because of the purity, or it is, something which is at the mental platform, so that we will be discussing, as I mentioned you. So we will go to the next theme. We are now just defined what is Raganuga Bhakti. What are the qualifications for practicing Raganuga Bhakti is mentioned as one of the themes, which we will be taking in the next few classes. So kindly hold on, be patient, and your question will be answered when we come to that discussion. Is it okay, Prabhuji? Any other questions, clarifications? I'm seeing that a lot of devotees are very enthusiastic to understand, how to practice Raganuga Bhakti. What are the qualifications? Yes, it is very eager to know. But as sadhakas, we should be very eager to hear Krishna Katha, to study Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, have very, good enthusiasm to every day morning get up and chant our rounds very attentively and very sincerely and seriously practice our sadhana bhakti. And definitely this series of seminars is just to, show the glory of what Raganuga Bhakti is, uh, which is which is practiced following in the footsteps of Raganuga Bhakti, and how glorious it is, and what a glorious path we have been given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa Goswami, and Prabhupada, and how we should, tread through this path. That is the whole purpose of this discussion. Okay, so we will stop here today, and next week we will be discussing few of the themes as I mentioned in our discussion. As I had mentioned, qualifications for Raganuga Bhakti will come. We are now only defined Raganuga Bhakti. We have defined Ragatmika Bhakti. After defining Ragatmika Bhakti, there is Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti, and then Sambandha Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti. We'll see what this is, and then we'll see the evidence. Then qualifications for Raganuga Bhakti when we come. Many of the questions were today about that. That time more elaborately we'll discuss, and definitely that time your questions will be answered more in detail in the discussion itself. And if it is not answered in the discussion, we will take up the question answers again there. Okay. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai.